If the commander of the battlecruiser Scharnhorst could have chosen, he would surely have preferred to wait out the stormy weather at his safe anchorage in Norway's Altafjord. But on Christmas Eve, 24th December 1943, the wishes of Captain Zorsi Fritz Hinze meant absolutely nothing, since the decision to send his ship to sea had been made at the very top, personally by Hitler. The battlecruiser Scharnhorst had gained a reputation within the Kriegsmarine as a lucky ship. As you can probably guess, such a reputation never arises out of nothing. Entering service on the very eve of the Second World War, this sleek giant managed to take part in many risky undertakings of the German Navy. Among its achievements were successful participation in the Norwegian landing operation and a highly productive 2-month raiding campaign in the waters of the Atlantic. On one occasion, Scharnhorst, together with her sister ship Gneisenau, even managed to send the British aircraft carrier Glorious to the bottom with her guns, an event still unmatched in naval practice to this day. In all of the episodes described above, an important, if not decisive, factor in their success was always high speed. This became possible thanks to the engineers who had thoughtfully given the ship a mighty heart. The power plant of the German battlecruiser delivered 160,000 horsepower to the shafts, providing this far from small vessel with a speed of 31 knots. But Scharnhorst's luck was not confined to the open sea. Even when moored at the pier, she somehow always managed to escape serious damage during numerous enemy air raids. The crowning example of German luck was Operation Cerberus, during which the heavy ship, after striking a mine, stopped dead in the middle of the English Channel. Abandoned by her escort, Scharnhorst seemed doomed. However, due to the enemy's sluggishness and the desperate resistance of the covering fighters, not a single British aircraft managed to hit the motionless target before repairs were completed. By 1942, the main forces of the German surface fleet had been hidden away in fjords along the northern coast of Norway, isolated from prying eyes. The very presence of this concentrated squadron forced the anti-Hitler coalition to expend considerable resources to provide proper cover for each of the Murmansk-Arkhangelsk Arctic convoys carrying Lend-Lease equipment. For a time, such a situation suited Berlin quite well. However, the changing conditions on the Eastern Front forced the Kriegsmarine leadership to adopt more decisive measures. The plan was simple: using the factor of surprise, intercept, and destroy the next transport caravan. In the event of success, there was every reason to hope that the cautious enemy would once again abandon the most convenient route for a long time, which of course would to some extent negatively affect the offensive momentum of the Red Army. On 23 December 1943, German reconnaissance aircraft discovered convoy JW-55B in the area of the Faroe Islands. According to the pilot's report, no large warships were observed in its escort. A more suitable opportunity to strike could hardly be imagined. That same evening, an order arrived from Grand Admiral Dönitz's headquarters: prepare all available forces for departure. To obtain fuller information, 8 submarines were sent into the area where the caravan was expected to be. Their crews were instructed to secretly shadow the enemy, reporting any changes in its speed and course. At that time, besides the submarine flotillas, 2 major surface ships were based in northern Norway: the battlecruiser Scharnhorst and the not yet hopeless battleship Tirpitz. However, the latter had recently been damaged and could not take part in the planned hunt. Thus, Scharnhorst was dispatched on the responsible mission in the company of only 5 escort destroyers. Command of the operation was entrusted to acting commander of the 1st Battle Group, Rear Admiral Eric Bay, whose flag was raised on the raider's mast. Friends, it is difficult to put into words what the Arctic Ocean is like at this time of year. Frequent snowfalls, alternating with heavy seas that time and again rise into furious storms, are quite ordinary here. But for a strong warship, this is not the most dangerous thing. No, far more terrifying is the all-encompassing darkness. The polar night in these latitudes lasts a full 22 hours, making it almost impossible to see anything beyond one's own bow. Even at noon, when the horizon at last flickers with a narrow gray band of light, observation remains extremely difficult. The lenses of rangefinders and the instruments of fire control are almost always covered with massive growths of ever-present ice. In such conditions, much, if not everything, depends on the intuition of the commander and the sharp eyes of the lookouts. Leaving their rocky shelter, the ships of the 1st Battle Group set course north. By the morning of the next day, visibility had fallen so drastically that Bay was forced to form a kind of screen out of his destroyers, placing them in a line about 10 kilometers ahead of Scharnhorst. In this formation, the squadron proceeded for about an hour, after which, in order to maximize the search area, the ships had to separate completely. And although this decision was undoubtedly dictated by urgent necessity, it cannot be overlooked that it had far-reaching consequences. About 150 meters ahead of Scharnhorst's formation, a huge column of water suddenly rose from the sea. It became clear that someone was firing at the battleship. The alarm rang out. Switching on the radar equipment, the Germans tried to determine the range and characteristics of the target. At that very moment, the ship shuddered twice from direct hits. The first shell did not explode, but the second completely destroyed the antenna of the forward radar, instantly making the raider half-blind. From the observed flashes and the nature of the damage, it could be assumed that Scharnhorst was under fire from at least 2 cruisers, one of which was certainly heavy. Erich Bay was close to the truth. His adversary was the previously unnoticed squadron of Rear Admiral Robert Burnett, consisting of the 2 light cruisers Belfast and Sheffield, as well as the heavy cruiser Norfolk. It was Norfolk's 200mm shells that struck Scharnhorst's armor. Burnett's formation, sailing 50 miles south of JW-55B, was providing distant cover. Using their radar equipment, the British were able to detect the enemy creeping through the fog in time and, pushing their engines to the limit, rushed to intercept. The cruisers arrived just in time, for had it not been for them, within less than an hour Scharnhorst would undoubtedly have attacked the Allied convoy. Not wishing to fight an unseen enemy, Scharnhorst laid a smokescreen, swung sharply about, and at maximum speed began to withdraw. Possessing an advantage in speed in the stormy sea, the German commander hoped to shake off the persistent escort quickly and then strike the transports from the other, unprotected side. To prevent their movements from being tracked by direction finding, the raiders' still functional aft radar was once again switched off. And it seemed the ruse had worked. Enemy fire soon indeed ceased. At noon, dawn began to break. In the first rays of the northern sun, Scharnhorst's lookouts spotted, off the starboard side, the barely distinguishable silhouettes of 3 ships. The cannonade that followed removed the last doubts. It was the enemy. In daylight, the gunners of the German battlecruiser acted far more effectively. The first victim of her 300-kilogram shells was Norfolk. The British cruiser, within a short span, received direct hits to the superstructure and the aft gun turret. Only the coordinated actions of her crew, who timely flooded the burning magazine, prevented inevitable destruction. The next salvo set Sheffield ablaze. High explosive shells bursting in close proximity inflicted severe damage to her machinery, almost depriving the light cruiser of mobility. You may be wondering how Robert Burnett, after the first clash, managed to stay on the tail of the faster Scharnhorst. In fact, he did not. Erich Bay could not have known one thing. British radar technology had, in a short time, made a great leap forward, now allowing them to track the enemy while remaining at a respectful distance. When the German ship turned once more to attempt to close with the transport convoy, Burnett's squadron again stood in her path. Be that as it may, had the battle lasted somewhat longer, the battlecruiser would almost certainly have destroyed the brave but significantly weaker British formation. However, Scharnhorst's commander had a very different order. His sole task remained the attack on JW-55. Therefore, to waste precious daylight on finishing off secondary escorts was considered an unaffordable luxury. Instead, Scharnhorst, for the second time that day, made a sharp turn, and at full speed left the scene of battle. Luck, which for so long had served as her guiding star, had abandoned the German ship. Reaching the expected area, Scharnhorst failed to find any trace of the transports. Soon darkness returned, and a snowstorm began. All this, together with discouraging reports from the German destroyers who had been searching all day, forced the abandonment of the hunt, and an order for all forces to retreat. Over the Arctic once again fell the black night. In the light of the rare stars of the stormy sky, the proud ship was barely visible. It seemed no one and nothing could pierce this veil. Suddenly, the sky was lit with countless bright flashes, and a moment later, a true hail of lead crashed down on the raider's armor. Hastily switching on the radar, the admiral was confronted with a terrifying picture. On the green screen of the locator, around Scharnhorst's position, appeared numerous glowing dots indicating enemy warships. The largest was located directly ahead at a distance of about 10,000 meters. Thus it turned out the raider was sailing straight into a trap. As the heavy ship executed yet another turn that day, reports of new damage poured in from every part of her. This time, Scharnhorst's main opponent was far more dangerous, His Majesty's battleship Duke of York. The battleship served as the flagship of the commander of the home fleet, Admiral Sir Bruce Austin Fraser. In addition to the aforementioned heavy cruiser, his formation included the light cruiser Jamaica and 4 destroyers. History is silent as to how exactly Admiral Fraser learned of the German squadron's proposed sortie. Perhaps the secret information had been received from the Norwegian resistance, or perhaps it was decrypted by radio intelligence. Having received the report, Sir Fraser, in the shortest possible time, devised a cunning plan. The main role in it was assigned to Burnett's squadron, which was tasked with engaging the fast enemy for as long as possible. This was necessary so that Fraser's formation, with the battleship at its head, could, having departed from its anchorage at the northern tip of Iceland, reach the anticipated rendezvous point with Scharnhorst and position itself between the raider and its base. And so it turned out. Appearing as if from nowhere, Duke of York struck its target with the second salvo. A shell hit the starboard side near turret A, completely putting it out of action. The next 2 exploded amidships, cutting down the crews of the anti-aircraft guns. At that moment, besides the battleship, Scharnhorst was being fired upon by the light cruisers Belfast and Jamaica, as well as Norfolk, already battered in previous battles. It must be said that despite the complete surprise of the attack and the numerous hits of varying calibers, the Germans' remaining operational turrets responded with surprisingly accurate fire in less than 5 minutes. Without hoping to pierce the thick armor of his opponent, Eric Bay sought to at least complicate the enemy battleship's aiming. In the fierce exchanges of fire that followed over the next 20 minutes, German gunners achieved at least 10 near misses and 3 direct hits on Fraser's flagship, which however caused Duke of York no significant damage. Completing her turn, Scharnhorst began to pull away quickly. The damaged ship once again demonstrated her excellent seakeeping qualities. I think it will be enough to say that the fugitive's speed in the stormy sea was such that even the destroyers sent in pursuit could not close the distance. However, when the gap between her and the enemy had widened to 18 kilometers, a powerful explosion thundered in the giant's engine room. A 356mm shell, fired under radar guidance from the British battleship, had struck the most vulnerable spot. Scharnhorst's speed instantly dropped, leaving the raider completely helpless against the torpedoes launched at her. The first attack involved 4 destroyers, which attacked textbook style, in pairs from either side. 4 torpedoes reached their target. The Germans returned fire from their secondary batteries, damaging one of the British ships. To everyone's amazement, the burning battlecruiser, as if ignoring the damage sustained, once again reached a speed of 22 knots. However, this was already agony. Scharnhorst scarcely responded to the helm. From the radio room, the last message was sent home. Scharnhorst is sinking. We will fight to the end. During the next 10 minutes, 7 more torpedoes slammed into her sides. It is difficult to say exactly when the raider went beneath the waves. None of the ships that had taken part in the battle witnessed the moment, which caused confusion and delayed the start of the rescue operation by more than an hour. This delay cost the lives of almost all the German sailors. When the destroyers finally arrived, only 36 men out of the 1,900 crew were rescued from 2 life rafts, and not a single officer among them. According to the surviving sailors, the entire command staff of the battlecruiser, after voluntarily giving their life jackets to the seamen, chose to share the fate of the dying ship. After refueling in the Soviet Union, when the British squadron was returning home and past the site of the recent battle, Admiral Fraser ordered the flag to be lowered, and a wreath was cast into the sea from the side of Duke of York. On deck, the assembled British sailors honored with a minute of silence the bravery of the defeated enemy. Concluding his speech, the Admiral turned to his officers. I hope that if circumstances ever demand it, each of you, leading your ship into battle against a stronger enemy, will command it as nobly as Scharnhorst was commanded that night.